Sunshine Coast, welcome. We're here today with Councillor Ted Hungerford from Division 7. Ted, thanks for meeting with us.
No worries, mate. Please do.
So, look, as you're aware, we're following on with this ongoing investigation into Verge parking, road widths, and the implications for Sunshine Coast residents. Now, I've got to start off with the first thing, and this is a really important one, I think, as we move forward investigating this. You're obviously aware that Councillor Dixon has spearheaded this exploration into a Verge parking initiative.
Yeah.
And that you guys have got meetings coming up on that soon.
Yeah.
So I understand that you guys have been kind of...
We're fairly limited on what we can do because we've got to administer the Act.
Of course.
Transport Operations Act, yeah.
Of course. So look, I suppose within the bounds of what you are obliged to do legally, as one of the councillors who obviously vote on whether this should go ahead, what right now, based on
whether what should go ahead,
this exploration of
well, we can only look at it, work with the Transport Department on where we can get leeway on things, because under the Transport Operations Act and the Transport Operation Regulations, a car must be firmly parked on the road reserve. It cannot go on the verge of the footpath or anywhere there, because they're liable for penalties, fines under the Act. Now, council doesn't run around looking for it, but where we receive a complaint where it's causing a nuisance or a hazard, then we have to look at it, and if the complaint has substance, then we have to enforce the provisions of the Act.
And if you don't enforce the state, and this is an important point, these are state provisions.
That's right. Now, if a person complains to us and we don't deal with the issue, they're within the right to then write to the State Ombudsman complaining that the council is not carrying out its duties.
Okay.
So then where do we stand? You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah, really between a rock and a hard place.
I reckon, yeah.
Yeah.
And our officers, the same as a police officer, he has to enforce the provisions of the Act.
Yeah.
And we're in the same boat. Where we receive a complaint, we're obliged, our responsibilities as a local government, to carry out our duties under that. So it's not an easy place to be. No,
it is a tricky issue, and I think that's to quote the mayor. He was on ABC Radio a couple of weeks ago, and this road width issue was brought up with him.
Yeah, that's one I got a bugbear with as well. So because under the Sustainable Planning Act, now I'm going from memory here. I've got to really think about things here. But you take a local access street, that's your back streets.
Yep.
From memory, they're about 15, 16 metre road widths. That's including the verge of about 6 metres.
So 15, 16 metre road width?
Yeah, is the minimum requirement.
Yep.
Okay, now you take the verge out of that. Then you've got a car parked each side of the road. Now under the Traffic Act, a car can be parked either side of the road as long as there's between that parked car and the other parked car 3 metres.
Right.
For vehicles to come through, but 3 metres is only wide enough for one car, so you get cars trying to go both ways up a street.
Yeah.
That makes it interesting, and it also makes it interesting for like emergency services, police, fire, ambulance, your garbage disposal guys, getting in and out of those narrow places to collect things. So I believe street width should be wider. So to give it that livability. Now you take, when I was choosing a house, I didn't go into one of these new estates because I'm not real impressed with the minimum lot sizes coming down to 200-300 square metres. I prefer to keep it to 650 square metre lot sizes, but I think our street widths have got to be relative to, you take under the Act, I think, parking spaces. You take with a unit complex, from memory, there's only one parking space the developer has to provide per unit.
Right.
And there's usually more than 2 people living in a unit, and both of them need a car, so you've got a problem to start with.
Yeah.
Only one parking space for visitors per 4 units, I think it is from memory, and one motorbike space for 10 units.
And that's their standards?
Their standards. Now, to me, that's just not workable.
No.
And that's creating problems in the new suburbs. Now, when I was looking at houses, I went around and looked in some of the new suburbs and went, this is crap, I wouldn't live here.
Yeah.
Rightio, because it didn't have that amenity that I wanted. Now I'm in an old estate in Headland Park where we've got nice wide streets, you've got enough to park on the car, I've got a big verge at the front, and I've got a decent sized yard.
Yes.
I've got 998 square metres.
Yes.
The house on it, but to me that's livable.
Yes.
But they're trying to cram people in like sardines in the suburbia now. And what does concern me is the state government is pushing on the local government's minimum growth targets in their areas. Now I think here they're wanting 64% of all growth to be infill in the current suburbs.
Right.
And only 35 for greenfill. That's new.
Brand new developments.
Brand new developments. Now, what I see concerning in that is densification. I don't see the corresponding state government infrastructure in like the road, rail, everything else that people will need. So I'm saying this is going to get worse over time.
Yeah.
Because we're cramming people in, but we're not actually building the infrastructure. Now to further complicate that is when developments go in, we've got a ceiling on what we can charge for the infrastructure charge on the developer.
Right.
Now I think for a 3-bedroom house it's about 28,000 and for a 2-bedroom unit about 21,000.
Okay.
So we've calculated, I think from memory, I'm really going through memory on it because councillors we cover a lot of stuff.
Of course.
The growth projections for cost of growth infrastructure is about 65%. So deficiency in the network then gets met by general rates.
Okay.
So that's something I've got an issue with as well. That general rates is the current deficiency, but if the growth coming in on there is barely paying for, if not paying for its total cost, because we can't calculate the total cost because we've got this mandatory ceiling that we can only charge. So that puts us behind. We do the best we can with what we've got.
So to try and kind of decipher all that, because that's a lot of information for people who are probably watching.
Yeah.
The essence of what you're saying is that state government sets levels of growth, where it should be, whether it's in existing areas, green fields.
When we do our town plans, we've got to show them how we can meet those growth targets. We've got to actually meet their targets.
Okay.
Which is, to me, we should be looking at how we want to grow.
Yes.
And what our minimum requirements are and everything else. But to get our town plan endorsed, we have to meet their requirements. The minister will only allow it to be endorsed if it meets what their requirements. It must be in line with their regional plan.
So this situation starts getting really tricky. Look, in a couple of recent interviews, I've tried to bring it back to basics because I think to give it the KISS principle, keep it stupid simple, because everything is so seems to be so convoluted for the public.
Yeah.
And look, it must be a minefield for councillors to go through and try and decipher this state, local government and the relationship between them.
Well, to give you a real simple definition is, local government is not a body that makes regulations and laws. We're giving them to actually work with. We're there to do the dirty work of the state government.
Yeah.
Carry out their regulations and rules. If we're wanting to put in a regulation or a bylaw or anything, it has to be in line with theirs and has to be approved by the minister.
Okay.
So council cannot just do what it wants in its own right. We've got to get permission.
Yeah.
Because they're the ultimate authority.
So
everything's done under their auspice, and anything we do has to be in line with what they okay.
Yeah.
The minister can direct us on anything, can refuse anything we want to do, and put it up to them. If we don't get permission, then we can't go forward with it.
Yes, yes.
You know, that's even making
it's a real catch-22.
Yeah.
So look, so to bring this back kind of directly on topic, in a simple kind of yes or no, and I think you've already answered it, but just so that it's really clear, new suburbs, greenfields, new developments, new roads going in under the state standards, are the roads wide enough?
In my opinion, no.
No.
Okay,
So
I'd like to see the right, because the old estates have got a road with, now you take, that was the local street. If you take a neighbourhood collector, which is a higher route, it's about 21, 22 metres wide street.
Yeah.
With about 6.5 metre verge.
Yes.
Incorporated in that. I believe that should be the standard in your other streets as well. But
Yeah.
the new estates now, with people crammed into where the block sizes are so small, the houses are built nearly crammed boundary to boundary. You don't even have a yard anymore.
Yeah.
You're cramming people in and putting in these minimum requirements. It's not livable. And like I said, when I walked around and looked at the new estates, I went, nah,
Yeah.
doesn't suit me. I went and picked an old one that had the character and those minimum requirements that they had those days.
Yeah.
They're actually livable and sensible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, look, not to put a wedge between relationships within the council, but since we became aware of this statement, we've asked everyone that we've interviewed.
Yeah.
Now, the mayor was quoted on ABC Radio as saying that the narrow roads are a significant or an essential part of housing affordability, and the responses to that. Look,
I've got my own opinion on that.
Yeah.
The development industry looks at the old way of doing things and they call that gold plating.
right.
And they're talking about housing affordability. Now, I don't believe that argument is justified. You look at the price they've got on houses in the new estates now, they're as dear, if not dearer, than what they used to be in the old suburbs. Now, costs go up over time, but I believe it's more to do with yield and profitability than housing affordability, because I don't see the housing getting any cheaper.
No.
It's actually getting more expensive.
And that's what it appears to be, you know, from the outside looking in.
That's just my take on it, my opinion.
So road widths are not, they're not safer than what they were, okay? They're not really contributing from the general perspective and from everyone we've spoken to so far, apart from that quote mentioned, they're not actually contributing to more affordable housing. So who do these narrow roads benefit? They don't benefit the residents, they don't benefit housing affordability, they don't benefit council truck drivers, fire engine drivers, emergency vehicles.
It reduces the costs on developers because there's less infrastructure there. It's a minimum requirement. And
so we get to a profitability.
And probably gives you, in a net area, more land available for housing.
To be sold.
To be sold, yeah.
Okay. So ultimately, narrow road widths seem to, at this point in time, only benefit one particular party, and that is developers and developers' profitability.
Well, they seem to want to go that way.
Yeah.
And there's one thing I've said to my residents before. You know how they always go on about red tape reduction? It's a nice little term, but it doesn't explain what it is. My opinion on red tape reduction is it's removing the requirements on developers so they can go on with what they want to do. I mean, it's sort of bypassing the community and council and everything. This red tape reduction needs to be explained and defined in greater detail because they're innocent words and don't sound thing, but what it's meaning is they're making more things code accessible, more things just straightforward for developers.
And they just go straight through.
Thing, and the thing that I've always been, wherever they brought in private certification, then once things always had to go through council.
Yes.
Now they can go to a private certifier who signs off on things and bypass
the democratic process.
They've still are supposed to look at the town plan and the building act and everything, but I'm getting some coming through that are really questionable, I can tell you.
Yeah, and
residents say to me, "How did you allow that?" And I said, "Well, I didn't. I went through private certification."
Yeah.
No, not council.
And this is about public education and people understanding that these new processes have been introduced to actually take power away from constituents and ratepayers to actually have a say in what goes on in their area. Yeah. And all of these laws are not, as you were saying before, not created by council because council doesn't create laws. No. They're created by the state government.
Yeah. Well, the state government brought in private certification.
Right.
It wasn't council.
Right. So, I mean, look, this is a really valuable conversation, Ted, because I think we start to get to the nuts and bolts of there's no real blaming that needs to be going between local and state. Yeah. It's starting to appear that state government needs to just simply take responsibility for the fact that they're handing these things down, and when the cards fall and ratepayers are upset and fines are being handed out,
the councillor they look at.
You end up copping the flak.
That's right.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
So to move forward from this, because obviously there's two distinct issues. There's the retrospective issue, which is what Councillor Dixon has before council. From what I understand, it's being able to put up signage that then allows within the state laws to put pads on the verge.
We've got to look at that and try and work with the Transport Department to see whether we can get any leeway.
If that's legal.
But we can't mandate that. We can only try and work with them to try and give us a better situation, because I feel for residents out there.
Yeah.
Narrow streets, there's 2 or 3 people in the house, it's only provided 1 parking space per unit, and yet quite often there's 2 cars per residence. Where do they go?
Or more. I mean, if you've got mum and dad and a couple of kids grown up, let's just say 2 kids, 2 teenage kids, one has a boyfriend, one has a girlfriend. Yeah. There's potentially 6 cars or more
can happen,
that are at a particular property. That's before you have friends over for the weekend, or
And another issue that's been brought up to us is some of these places have a garage.
Yes.
1 or 2 car garage in there. Because they come down to such small block sizes and houses going on them, they're effectively using that for storage or another room because the houses are so small, so that's putting more cars out on the street.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I think this is where it comes back to, and I've had a couple of conversations off camera with different people, but it certainly seems to be that state planning sets these rules, allows developers to set block widths, to have certain sizes and that kind of thing. But really, in terms of modern living, the houses aren't big enough, the blocks aren't big enough, the roads aren't big enough.
Yeah.
And
I didn't mind doing a new estate because I don't like it.
For that very reason.
For that very reason. I chose the character and the comfort that I wanted.
Yeah.
But the other one I give to you is if council does try to enforce higher standards than what the minimum stated under the Sustainable Planning Act.
This is what I was about to get to.
And then if a developer challenges us in the Planning and Environment Court,
yes,
and they're meeting the requirements, council hasn't got much to stand on.
Okay, so we end up with this round and round in circles.
Yeah.
So look, I interviewed Jared Blade the other day and I said to him, how do we move past this? How does council get the state government to amend these standards?
Yeah.
Stop wasting taxpayers' money.
Or what the state should do, rather than one size fits all across Queensland, right? Why don't they allow each local government to set its own standards and have it in our town plan? Because that's what the people elect us to put forward and govern in their interest. If that's the standard that's wanted in that area, why can't each local government set its own standards and have it in its town plan? I believe that's how it should be.
So to
not one size fits all.
To make that happen then, how does that look? That would be obviously changes in legislation, so that would have to go through state parliament.
Yeah.
So for me as a resident, if I wanted to push this on through this investigative process, say to residents, okay, you want wider roads for the future, all right? Because I mean the retrospective
I'm very much for increasing the minimum road widths and the block sizes. I want to see the minimum 650 square metres.
Yeah.
Some of them are trying to come down to 200-300 square metres.
Yeah.
And to me, that's living in a shoebox.
Yes. Yes.
You have a whole suburb like that. It's no.
So moving that
and
forward.
I said to someone the other night, and I've been told, my wife says I shouldn't say this, but I said we go cook about chickens being housed all cramped together in cages and big sheds and everything, but in reality, aren't we doing that with these new suburbs?
I couldn't
We're doing the same to ourselves as human beings,
disagree.
cramming us in the smallest block in a house that's only just fits on it. Isn't that similar?
Yeah.
I'm probably getting in trouble for that.
No, but look, there is a real parallel.
Yeah. But see, to me, we should be looking at a standard that gives livability for people. To have a decent sized block, to have a house that fits on it, to have a street that's wide enough to go down for two cars to pass each other, for heaven's sake, and for the garbage supply and emergency services to go down quite easily.
Yeah.
And because we've got people now because those minimum requirements are making it hard for people, they're now getting fined and penalised for doing the best they can in the environment they're in.
Yeah.
And I feel for them.
Yeah. And council has to go out and police these things under the legislation, under the law, because if you don't, at the request of a
Transport
ratepayer,
Operations Act and the Transport Regulations,
you're in trouble for not upholding your obligations.
That's right.
Interesting. Ted, we've kind of run out of time. Thank you very much for your time. Mate. We appreciate it.
Yep.
And look, we'll continue looking into this. And if we could share this across your social media, start some more debate across the coast. Hopefully we can get our elected representatives to work together to have a look at this legislation and change it for the betterment of us all for the future.
That'd be great.
Cheers.
Yeah, no worries.